Welcome class to understanding the edTPA assignment. This portion of the video will only cover part 2.2, which is your summative assessment. So by now you should have a standard, you should have learning target, you should have a lesson, you should also have a pre-assessment and a formative assessment. And we're going to continue to work on part 2 this week. So the directions that you see here are once again located in the assignment folder, in the edTPA assignment folder on the course site. I will say again that you need to be doing this on the template that's in that folder. So you don't have to do this on a blank paper. Everything's on a template that you've been working on, hopefully, this whole time. 2.2 is worth 7 points of the assignment, and basically it requires that you plan a quiz to give to students at the end of your lesson. Now you won't actually be giving this to a group of students. You are going to be piloting it, and I'll talk about that next week, with one student who is probably either going to be a family member or a friend or friend's child, or maybe a student from your own classroom, but only one student. So your quiz should measure knowledge and not performance. So what do students know? And that should align with your learning target. The quiz needs to be made up of very specific items. I want to see 6 multiple choice items, 3 binary choice items such as true, false, fact, opinion. So those are items that only have 2 answer choices, and 1 matching item with at least 4 premises. Now remember, premises are the things on the left side of the matching column. So don't use less than 4. Use 4 or even more. You also need to include a Flesch-Kincaid reading level and readability analysis. You're going to learn how to do that in this week's module. So you'll want to run that on your quiz so you'll be able to report it. The point here is that your reading level shouldn't be too high and probably not too low as well for your grade. So if you're doing a 2nd grade quiz, you certainly don't want a 10th grade reading level. It might be okay to have a 3rd grade reading level, so it should be plus or minus 1. Reading ease, you'll find out, refers to how easy it is to read. It's a sophisticated calculator that Word embeds, and it allows it to calculate, for example, how many passive sentences you have, awkward constructions, and that number should be 60% or higher. Please include an answer key for your items. You can highlight the answers, or you can give me a separate answer key following your quiz. After this, you need to include a rationale for choosing the types of items you selected based on best practices. So for example, certain items, as you've read in your textbook and you'll hear in the lecture, lend themselves to true, false, certain ones to multiple choice, and certain ones to matching. Why did you do that? And you need to justify your choices in the rationale with evidence from the textbook. So this should be in the form of a citation, and of course, whenever you have a citation in APA, you have to provide a reference page at the end. Some strategies for success. First, you have your standard, your target, and now you have to assess that target. So you have to decide which items to use for what. All the items must be aligned. That means they must measure the same content or skill. Use your 2 tip sheets for best practices. So these are the sheets that you've been working with. You'll work with them this week and next week, particularly the selected response tip sheets, because these are all selected response items. So for example, your tip sheet will tell you to order your responses of multiple choice. Your tip sheet will tell you the stem of a multiple choice should be a complete sentence. So just check off on that tip sheet to make sure you're using all the best practices. Take your test. Sometimes you find errors by doing this, or have another adult take your test and maybe they could point out problems, maybe places where it's not easily understood. Have someone look it over for validity, grammar, spelling, etc. And do not wait until the last minute. So this part of the assignment isn't actually due until later in the month, but get started because this does take time. It can't be done on the last day. Also in the assignments folder is the grading scale for, we call this portion the summative quiz. And you can see that how this is going to be broken out. So 1 point that you have the right mix of items, 2 points for quality of items, 1 point for an appropriate reading scale, reading level and readability analysis. There are 2 points for test layout and construction and 1 for well-supported rationale. I want to spend just a minute talking about how you can set up your matching so that it's in a table and it saves you a lot of headache. Most of you know how to insert tables in Word. So all you have to do is go in and insert a table and then type your premises and your responses in on the table. If you look at this table, this is a matching table and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. The first column contains the blanks, so you just simply, use the underline to put blanks in the first column. The second column contains the words, so make sure you alphabetize those. That's part of the good tips. Then there's a blank column that separates the premises from the responses on the right. The fourth column has the letters A, B, C, D, E, or however far you need to go. And the final column has the definitions or whatever you want to put on the right. People spend a lot of time, if they don't use a table, trying to get things to line up. This is the simplest way to get things to line up. You can just do it in a table. I also want to emphasize that this must be your own work. You're not allowed to go out on the internet and find items. You're not allowed to use old quizzes that you've used in the classroom. Every year I have at least a couple of people who get caught in this. They go out and they look for ideas, and sometimes it's inadvertent. They remember items, or maybe they've used something for 10 years and they think it's okay to use. This should be new. This should be done without looking at the internet. It should be done on your own. And the reason for this is I know that teachers go out and use things on the internet, and I would expect you to do that when after you passed your certification test and you're in your own program. But you're learning how to do assessment. And so that doesn't mean to go out and find things to use. The second reason is that it probably is not going to be aligned well with your particular learning target. So you want to be very careful about only using something that's aligned. So again, if I do find, and I carefully check the internet, and I check this for plagiarism, if I do find that we have a problem, I'm going to communicate with you and you'll be asked to redo the assignment. So just a note of caution there. And again, once again, use the tips sheet. I can't stress this enough. You'll be happier if you do. Now, what's going to happen is next week I'm going to explain how to give this to a student, and then you're going to submit all of part 2. I'm going to give you feedback on part 2, and you'll get a chance to revise it, and particularly the items, the questions for your quiz. You'll get a chance to revise those to improve your quiz. So any questions, as always, please feel free to email me.